Judd Zulgad. Chris Long joins me. I'm, of course, with 1500 ESPN. Thanks for coming to our website. Chris Long from Channel 5. My partner here in Chicago, guy who works downstairs. Appreciate your time, sir. Blackhawks Wild, Game 1 of the second round series. 5-2 is the final tonight. Blackhawks win Game 1. I thought it was very interesting. Mike Yeo came right into his press conference tonight, Chris Long, and said, I'm not happy with how he played. No excuses about being tired, no excuses about anything. He clearly didn't like the effort he got from his team.
I'm always a fan of boxing analogies in any sport. It always seems to work. This one, the teams exchanged jabs early. All of a sudden, the Wild land a nice punch to tie it 2. Then Patrick came with the absolute haymaker. Yeah. Then gets the second goal shortly after. And I almost disagree with what Mike Yeo said. I thought his team played an adequate hockey game, with the exception of that very small stretch where they lost track of Patrick Kane twice. Once on a breakaway where he fired an amazing shot top corner, and then secondly when they lost track of him on the near post to beat Brizgalov for the fourth goal.
I thought it was interesting. Mike Yeo wouldn't name names, Chris, but he came flat out and said 4 or 5 guys didn't play up to par tonight. I would say name number 1, although he wouldn't name him, was Brodin, because Brodin took a couple penalties that were very costly, led to power play goals. He also got beat by Kane on the backhand shot that you're talking about. Quite simply, if you're going to play the Blackhawks, and this defense is so good, if you're going to play the Blackhawks, Ryan Suter is going to be good, we figure that out, but everyone else has to be better too.
And Jason Pominville, who might be the most pure scorer on this team, has got to start hitting the net. He had at least 5 missed shots. I didn't see the final stats, but he's got to start hitting the net. I mean, at least generate rebounds. No shot that missed the net ever went in, and if he's going to be a guy that's going to contribute a couple goals over the course of the series, he has got to dial things in.
Well, consider this. In the past 2 years, for the past 2 years at the trade deadline, Chuck Fletcher, the Wild GM, has gone out and got Jason Pominville from Buffalo and then Matt Molson from Buffalo. And so far, to show for that, in these playoffs, he's gotten 1 goal from Molson and 1 empty net goal from Pominville. These are, Chris, our top 6 forwards. It's one thing to beat Colorado, and that's a nice victory. But these Blackhawks are so highly skilled. If you're going to beat the Blackhawks, if you don't get contributions from, or if you expect to beat the Blackhawks, if you don't get contributions from Molson and Pominville, you're dead. You're just dead.
You need everybody. I mean, Molson was somewhat invisible. On the other side, Kyle Brodziak's playing unbelievably. Since the benching, since he was taken on lineup, he's been great.
Yep.
Danny Heatley, the last 2 games, looks like he's been connected to the old rejuvenation.
Where'd it come from?
But there are still some guys that are just invisible. Jared Spurgeon wasn't really a factor tonight. Some guys that have made an impact just didn't at all tonight.
Brizgalov starts in goal tonight, and I know people are always concerned about Brizgalov and the goaltending situation, Chris, but it is what it is. The Wild has been gone through a ton of goaltenders, and here's my thing. Brizgalov, I think going into the playoffs, you knew this. He's not going to win you games. It doesn't mean he's going to be terrible. Now, we can argue about the Kane backhand. That was a beautiful goal. I said it probably needs to be stopped. But the reality is, if the Wild's going to sit here and say, we need Brizgalov to win us games, this series is going to be done in 4 or 5 games.
You don't beat Chicago by scoring 2 goals. So the first thing you look at is what the offensive inefficiencies and inadequacies were tonight. Brizgalov was fine. The guy's your 4th string goalie. Basically held them to 3.5 goals. I maybe give him half credit for the Kane goal, but he did enough to give his team a chance to win. And when you're talking about a 4th stringer, that's all you want.
Last thing, Stoner played well on defense, but to me, the first goal of the game by Bickle, Spurgeon is trying to take on Bickle. You can't have that matchup.
No.
That you can't, and I realize Spurgeon kills penalties, so people will say, well, what are they supposed to do? No, you can't have, that is a power forward matched against a point guard. That is going to be a mismatch every time.
And the way the Wild stemmed the tide against the Avalanche when they recaptured momentum a couple times in that last series was with physical play. Clayton Stoner was the only guy playing overtly physical out there tonight.
Yes.
A couple good hits, created a goal for himself, which
weird,
very strange
deflection.
play. But there wasn't the full line-to-line intensity that you saw in the games where you're watching the Wild play Colorado, you're on the edge of your seat going, man, they're coming out on fire. Right. Didn't happen tonight.
5-2, the Blackhawks beat the Wild Game 1 of the series. Game 2 will be Sunday afternoon right here at in Chicago, I should say, before they go back to St. Paul and resume the series. Game 3 will be on Tuesday at the X. He's Chris Long from Channel 5. Thank you very much for joining me.
Pleasure.
I'm Judd Zulgad. Thanks for coming to 1500ESPN.com.